Hey Athey kids and parents, this weekend in Athey Kids, we are reading part 1 of the incredible story of Esther. Mordecai was a Jew who chose to stay in Persia after the Jews were allowed to return to Jerusalem by King Cyrus. Mordecai had a young cousin whom he had adopted when her parents died. Her Persian name was Esther. Esther was beautiful, and eventually she was chosen to be queen by King Ahasuerus, who was also known as King Xerxes. Mordecai told her not to reveal that she was Jewish, so she kept her identity a secret. This is what happened during the time of King Xerxes. He ruled from his capital city of Susa. In the 3rd year of his rule, he gave a banquet. It was for all his important men and royal officers from all of Xerxes' empire. During the celebrations, the king commanded them to bring him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown. She was to come to show her beauty to the people and important men. She was very beautiful, but she refused to come. Then the king came very angry. Then one of his advisors spoke to the king and the other important men. He said, "Queen Vashti has not done wrong to the king alone. She has also done wrong to all the important men and all the people in the empire of King Xerxes. Today, the wives of the important men have heard about the queen's actions, and they will speak in the same way to their husbands, and there will be no end to the disrespect and anger. So our king, if it pleases you, give a royal order. The law should say Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also, let the king give her place as queen to someone who is better than she is. And let the king's order be announced everywhere in his large kingdom. Then all the women will respect their husbands, from the greatest to the least important." They said, "Let a search be made for a new queen. Then let the girl who most pleases the king become queen in place of Vashti." The king liked this advice, so he did as they said. Mordecai had been taken captive from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Mordecai was part of the group taken into captivity with Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, who had no father or mother, so Mordecai took care of her. Hadassah was also called Esther, and she was very beautiful. Mordecai had adopted her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. The king's command and order had been heard, and many girls had been brought to the palace in Susa. When this happened, Esther was also taken to the king's palace. Esther did not tell anyone about her family or who her people were. Mordecai had told her not to, and the king was pleased with Esther more than any of the other girls, and he liked her more than any of the others. So King Xerxes put a royal crown on Esther's head, and she was made queen in place of Vashti. Now there were 2 of the king's officers who guarded the doorway. While Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, the other 2 officers became angry at the king, and they began to make plans to kill King Xerxes. But Mordecai found out about their plans and told Queen Esther. Then Queen Esther told the king. She also told him that Mordecai had found out about the evil plan. When the report was investigated, it was found to be true. The 2 officers who had planned to kill the king were punished, and all this was written down in the daily court record in the king's presence. After these things happened, King Xerxes honored Haman the Agagite. He gave Haman a new rank that was higher than all the important men, and all the royal officers and the king's gate would bow down and kneel before Haman. But Mordecai would not bow down, and he did not kneel. Then Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down to him or kneel before him, and became very angry. He had been told who the people of Mordecai were, and he thought of himself as too important to try and kill only Mordecai. So he looked for a way to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Jews, in all of Xerxes' kingdom. Letters were sent by messengers to all the king's empire. They stated the king's order to destroy, kill, and completely wipe out all the Jews. That meant young and old, women and little children too. The order said to kill all the Jews on a single day, and it said to take all the things that belonged to the Jews. The messengers set out, hurried by the king's command. At the same time, the order was given in the palace of Susa, and the city of Susa was in confusion. Then Mordecai gave orders to say to Esther, "Just because you live in the king's palace, don't think that out of all the Jews alone you will escape. You might keep quiet at this time. Then someone else will help and save the Jews. But you and your father's family will all die. And who knows, you may have been chosen queen for just such a time as this." Then Esther sent this answer to Mordecai, "Go and get all the Jews in Susa together. For my sake, give up eating. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night and day. I and my servant girls will also give up eating. Then I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I die, I die." On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes. Then she stood in the inner courtyard of the king's palace, facing the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the doorway. The king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard. When he saw her, he was very pleased. He held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther went up to him and touched the end of the scepter. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What do you want to ask me?" "I will give you as much as half of my kingdom." Esther answered, "My king, if it pleases you, come today with Haman to the banquet. I have prepared it for you." That same night the king could not sleep, so he gave an order for the daily court record to be brought in and read to him. And it was found recorded that Mordecai had warned the king about the 2 officers that had planned to kill him. Then the king asked, "What honor and reward have been given to Mordecai for this?" The king's personal servants answered, "Nothing has been done for Mordecai." The king said, "Who is in the courtyard?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace. He had come to ask the king about putting Mordecai to death. The king's personal servant said, "Haman is standing in the courtyard." So the king said, "Bring him in." So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What should be done for a man that the king wants very much to honor?" And Haman thought to himself, "Whom would the king want to honor more than me?" So he answered the king, "This is what you could do for the man you want very much to honor. Have the servants bring a royal robe that the king himself has worn, and also bring a horse with a royal crown on his head. The horse should be one of the king himself has ridden. Then let the robe and the horse be given one of the king's most important men. Let the servants put the robe on the man the king wants very much to honor, and let him lead him on the horse through the city streets. As they are leading him, let them announce, 'This is what is done for the man the king wants very much to honor.'" The king commanded Haman, "Go quickly, take the robe and the horse just as you have said, and do all this for Mordecai, the Jew who sits at the king's gate. Do not leave out anything that you have suggested." Through an amazing turn of events, Mordecai saved King Ahasuerus from the plot to be murdered. Yet he was not only forgotten for this, but also became an enemy to Haman the Agagite, who sought to destroy the Jews. But God was in control. Our prayer is that you put your trust in the Lord Jesus today. God bless you guys. We'll see you this weekend.